British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Good morning, I'm Selena Teixeira, and here are your headlines for the morning. Grocery stores across Canada are warning consumers that tariffs are going to impact prices very soon. Producer Joe McHugh has more on what's going on.
Thanks, Selena. A LinkedIn post by Loblaw chief executive Per Bank has said that the number of products affected by tariffs will spike and that prices will rise as a result. This in addition to the more than 1,000 items that have already had their prices impacted by tariffs. Coming up later today on BCIT News, attendance is up at the Vancouver Police Department's self-defense classes for women. A new childcare facility opens in Mount Pleasant, and the potential impact of lower-than-average tourism on Granville Island businesses. Back to you, Selena.
Thank you, Joe. Opposition parties have attacked Prime Minister Mark Carney for being vague about his plans. His government said it would not be able to table a federal budget before the House of Commons rises this summer. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said he was disappointed by yesterday's announcement.
This makes it the longest period without a budget since the 60s, the first time there has not been a budget outside of COVID in over 20 years. Extremely unusual. It'll send a bad signal to investors and ratings agencies, and a lot of people will wonder what the Liberal government is hiding about our finances.
Alberta made 11th hour changes to a controversial proposed legislation, stating that the supposed separation could threaten First Nations' existing treaty rights. The bill is not yet law, but has faced backlash from Indigenous leaders. NDP Deputy Leader Rocky Pancholi spoke on the fact that adding a line to this bill would legally not be enough to comply with Indigenous people in the province. Prime Minister Mark Carney is heading to Rome tomorrow for Pope Leo's inaugural Mass. Sunday's ceremony at St. Peter's Square marks the official start of the Pope's term. While in Rome, Carney is expected to meet with other international leaders to talk about deepening trade and cultural ties. Last month, Carney did not attend the funeral for Pope Francis at the Vatican because it was close to Canada's federal election. Governor General Mary Simon led a senior delegation to represent Canada at the funeral. Now on to international news. The Supreme Court is hearing arguments in its first case stemming from the flurry of actions making the start of President Donald Trump's second term. Before the court on Thursday are the Trump administration's emergency appeals of lower court orders, putting nationwide holds on the Republican president's push to deny citizenship to children who are born to people who are in the U.S. illegally. Birthright citizenship is among the several issues the administration has urgently asked the court to deal with, after the lower courts acted to slow Trump's agenda. The administration, like the Biden administration before it, complains judges are overreaching by issuing nationwide injunctions that apply to everyone instead of just the parties before the court. Russian President Vladimir Putin has chosen to stay away from proposed direct peace talks in Turkey with Ukraine's leader. Despite a push in recent weeks to reach an argument by Western leaders, U.S. President Donald Trump was asked to aboard Air Force One if he was disappointed by the turnout of Russia's delegation.
Nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together, okay? And obviously he wasn't going to go. He was going to go, but he thought I was going to go. He wasn't going if I wasn't there.
For our weather forecast at 10:30, we're looking at cloudy conditions for most of the day and rain starting up around 11 a.m. that will last until later this evening. And that was your news for 10:30. I'm Selena Teixeira, and you're listening to BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Good morning. I'm Riley Cunningham here with your 1040 sports headlines. The Edmonton Oilers are headed back to the Western Conference Finals for the second year in a row. Stuart Skinner successfully shut out the Vegas Golden Knights last night, and an overtime goal from Kasperi Kapanen secured the series for the Edmonton team. The Oilers look to finish what they started last year, where they lost in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals to the Florida Panthers, who secured their first cup in franchise history. The Toronto Maple Leafs suffered a devastating 6-1 loss to the Florida Panthers last night. Heading into Game 5 of the tied series, both teams were looking for the win to gain a lead. Leafs head coach Craig Berube says the team's start in the game was disappointing and that everyone needs to be better.
It's hard to explain it. We all got to be better, myself included. You can't start the game that way. That's a big thing for me.
Toronto treks down to the Sunshine State for Game 6 on Friday, where they hope to once again tie up the series and force a Game 7. The Dallas Stars are up north tonight for Game 5 of their series against the Jets. The Stars currently lead the series 3-1 and can secure their ticket to the Eastern Conference Finals with a win over Winnipeg tonight. Jets head coach Scott Arniel says the team has to step up and be at their best to win this Game 5. FC Cincinnati took the win over Toronto FC on Wednesday with a final score of 1-0. Robin Fraser, Toronto's head coach, says the team wasn't playing like they should have in the first half.
And I felt like in the first half we didn't really have enough solutions. I felt like in the second half we were able to find some players in between, which could then lead into the next attack. And we actually ended up toward the end having some pretty decent moments.
Toronto is in Montreal this Saturday to take on CF Montreal. FIFA is under fire once again with claims of a failure to uphold its human rights policy. A formal complaint has been filed against the organization by a group of international lawyers who say FIFA ignored offers from anti-corruption advisor Mark Peath on human rights compliance before picking Saudi Arabia as the host for the 2034 World Cup with no rival bidder. FIFA President Gianni Infantino was in Saudi Arabia for U.S. President Donald Trump's state visit this week. Turning to baseball, the Toronto Blue Jays saw success last night in a 3-1 win over the Tampa Bay Rays. Catcher Alejandro Kirk had the big hit of the night with a 3-run homer that led the team to victory. Kirk was back in the lineup Wednesday after an injury in Seattle last Sunday, where he was accidentally hit in the head with a bat. Chris Bassett, starting pitcher for the Jays, says the league needs to change the rules around backswings to protect catchers.
I'm pretty adamant when I say it probably should be a rule change where if the hitter does that to a catcher, I think they should automatically be out. And then it's just quickly going to change a swing where you just cannot have, a bat is a weapon. You can't be out of control. If you're out of control, you're out. Fix it. You can't have guys get hit in the head.
The Jays continue their 3-game series against the Rays in Toronto today. The Minnesota Timberwolves are heading to the Western Conference Finals after their win over the Golden State Warriors in Game 5 on Wednesday. The team will face off against either Denver or Oklahoma City in the next round. The Nuggets and Thunder play Game 6 in their series tonight, with OKC leading 3-2. The Boston Celtics took the win over the New York Knicks in Game 5, coming out 127-102. The game was a must-win for the team, looking to extend the series and push a Game 6. The Knicks still lead the series 3-2, and the teams will face off again on Friday at Madison Square Garden. Finally, the 50th anniversary of Jaws is coming up this year, and one man is taking it upon himself to try and change the public's negative perception of sharks that the film inspired. Lewis Pugh is a 55-year-old swimmer who is taking on the challenge of swimming around Martha's Vineyard, an island off the coast of Massachusetts, over the course of about 12 days. Pugh will swim a total of 62 miles in 8-degree water during the start of white shark migration season. Those were your 1040 sports headlines. Stay tuned for more in sports at 11:10 with Braden Coombs.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.